The live stream's now commenced.
Okay. So I want to welcome our viewers from home who are watching our informal gathering of elected members here at the City of Victor Harbor. Tonight, elected members are being provided with an update briefing by the Department of Infrastructure and Transport Planning on the new Causeway project, and we have a project team from DIPTI here who are going to make some presentations and take council through the project and its current status. I'll hand over to Glenn Sanford, who is our project lead at the council, to do some introductions of the DIPTI staff, and then we'll hand over to DIPTI staff to do their presentation. So I'll hand to you, Glenn.
Thank you, Victoria. Yes, John Whelan, he's the director of the project. John's got his hand up there. We have Colin Bolton as well. Hello, Colin, that I've been working and liaising with over the past several weeks. And I'm sorry, I'll have to introduce the other two beside you, Colin. I haven't been introduced to before.
I'm Phil Malloy. I'm the Principal Structural Engineer with DIPTI.
And I'm Izzy Gerard, Senior Environment Advisor with DIPTI.
And I've also got Simon Lee. Are you there, Simon?
Hi everyone, Simon Lee from the Office for Design and Architecture, part of DIPTI.
Welcome on board. So this opportunity is to provide elected members with a briefing where things are currently at in regards to the Causeway replacement, and also talking about the placemat that's been created as well, John and Colin, that we've received. So I'll hand it over to you, and I'm sure we'll have a few questions coming your way shortly.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Victoria. Can I also thank the Mayor and thank the elected members for the opportunity to present this. Apologise that we're not there in the chambers directly, and as soon as we can be down to Victor Harbor, your lovely city, we're more than happy to come down and brief and update as required. I'll try and use my tech skills to share a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. There we go. So do we have that on screen?
Yes, we do. That's nice and clear.
Great, thank you. I'll just go as quick as I can through some of this because some of it will be very familiar to everybody. Just an artist's impression. You know, we need to continue developing a whole range of what we call artist impressions for further consultation, not only with yourselves, but also the community at large and also businesses in the immediate area. We're progressing with that at the moment. It's really fantastic that the South Australian Government's committed $31.1 million to the replacement of Granite Island Causeway. Following a structural pile failure in January, as you're aware, we engaged GHD, reputable organisation, to undertake a detailed condition assessment and structural review. Following that review, we undertook some remediation works, and we'll show some photos of some of those remediation works later. This was to ensure that we could maintain the causeway in its current operation. Obviously, you'd be aware that in certain wind conditions, we do have to restrict that. But it was certainly, we wanted to have it operational in time for us to deliver a new causeway. The condition assessment also identified that retaining the original causeway was not viable. There was a range of issues, and the team and I will talk through that a little bit later. The new proposed Granite Island Causeway is proposed to be constructed directly adjacent to the existing causeway. And really, I can't thank your council officers enough, Victoria and Mayor. We've been working since I've taken back onto this project. We've been working really collaboratively and trying to get to where we are tonight to be able to do a presentation. You know, some historical images, they're on our website. I'm very familiar with this. In recognising the history of Granite Island, we engaged a heritage architect, Flight Path. Some basic stats about when it was constructed in 1864. There's a range of other stuff on DIPTI's website. You may already be familiar with that. The screw pole jetty completed in 1881 and the breakwater in 1882. The spur, the Victoria Pier, was used for a long time. Lifeboat, sheds, swimming baths, in fact. But due to its poor maintenance and its conditioning, it was demolished in 1956, along with the working jetty. No secret, this causeway has undergone a number of repairs and alterations. Not much of its original structure remains. There's been a range of materials used, from timber to concrete to steel. Even recently, we've got aluminium supports or propping up there to stabilise the structure. And that's certainly to make sure in the short term as a safety, so that we can remain the connection. A really important fact is that only approximately 10% of the original structure below deck remains. You know, the fabric above deck, including the handrails and everything, is non-original. This is just a summary, and I've got a new placemat which I'll share with Victoria, and she'll be able to distribute after this meeting with the council elected members. We've done some further investigation, and if you look at the number of existing timber piles, the analysis of the report shows that only five of those 219 could be used again. That's an indication that around 98% of those existing piles have to be replaced. Now, for those to be replaced, you have to take all the top off to actually put the new piles in. Some of the other things, the steel piles, they're well rusted now. We'd have to replace those. There's bracing and cross whaling. All that would have to be replaced. You know, the crossheads that we look at, yes, there's some are in reasonable condition, but my experience in doing jetty revitalisation projects is very difficult to reuse some of this componentry. You know, bolts are rusted in, you know, trying to remove parts of the fabric itself are very difficult. But this is in a placemat that we'll provide to council. Again, the lower deck, you know, none of it's original. The upper deck, no deck of it's original. There's some stats there about the square metre that would need to be replaced. You know, just some photos, you know, what we call pile necking. These are some of the good photos, in fact, you know, where we've actually got some piles that have no connection at all. These are some of the repairs that are done. You'll see some new bits of timber. You'll see some propping. I will make it certainly clear, one of the questions has been around, and I'll get Phil Malloy to talk about it at some point. You've heard of different types of treatments that have been allegedly be able to use. Things like wrapping piles, you need to have some integrity of the pile to wrap. Some issues around that is wrapping piles, you then don't ever get to see what is happening in underneath that wrapping. You then also remove the fabric of the timber pile itself. So you're looking at what is really considered a wrap pile. And some of our other experiences are that unless you unwrap that to see what's happening, it does cause some long-term problems as well. You still there?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Yep. Yes. So I just talked about wrapping, you know, certainly has its effects that it can't be used and it's not preferred use, but I will get Phil Malloy to talk a little bit about that later, about some of the proposed schemes that people have put up. Really important for us, and that's why Isabel Gerard's here tonight, one of our senior environmental officers. Environmental assessment report has to be undertaken and will be undertaken before any works commence on a new causeway. Part of that condition, it has to be presented to the State Commission Assessment Panel or SCAP. We'll need to do a report that takes into consideration all marine life. That's whales, dolphins, the penguin colony on the Granite Island itself. And there'll be a range of things that any contractor that we engage will have to take into consideration. Another thing with pile driving, we do have a DIPTI's underwater policy on that. There are opportunities we can do to mitigate the impacts on marine life in that case. There's one that calls what we call a slow start technique, uses a lot less dynamic force to hit the pile in. There's also other things like what we call underwater bubbling to try and reduce any of that. We'll need to take all those factors into consideration. It's also a strong part of our procurement method of how we propose to engage our preferred contractor. We've done other successful projects, Rapid Bay Jetty, just to give council a surety that we're experienced in this type of work. The environmental is important, as you would all understand. You know, we've already gone out to the market for a registration of interest, and our proposal is that what we call a request for proposal is likely, we're aiming to go out this Friday. it'll be a two-stage process. So there'll be a stage one where we'll engage with all the ones that have registered, and then we'll look to shortlist to two, and we are going to run through what's called an early contractor involvement. This is a great opportunity for us to work with their designers, work with council, work with businesses, work with the local community in its ultimate solution. Also take into account the urban design features, which Simon Lee's put together an urban design feature guide. It's also important to work through our environmental issues. Our plan is to have the work commencing at the end of this year. The actual new causeway open for use, that's also the horse-drawn tram by the end of 2021. And then there'll be some finishing works and subject to any heritage approvals around decommissioning the existing causeway, we'd finish all that by late 2022. So just to go through that again, we'll keep the existing causeway in operation through all of this. If you were to do a rehabilitation of the existing causeway itself, could be shut for over 12 months, at least a year, maybe longer. So our proposal, new causeway, commence work at the end of this year, have the new causeway open for operation at the end of 2021, and then all the other works that I talked about by the end of 2022. Now, these are some aspirational urban design examples. Simon Lee and the government architect have worked with us to provide a framework. I can get Simon to talk to that later, but these are aspirational urban designs. I did get some questions of what's happening to Granite Island in that top left photo. That is not Granite Island, and we didn't want to betray that. It's the urban design features. That was to show how you can have a dual use area on a structure. As I said, government architect has developed urban design framework. It's about the aspirations and the iconic connection of that. We need to look at that offset of the causeway. At the moment, we've shared with council officers a 10-metre offset. Previously, you may have seen something at 30 and even 50. We believe the best opportunity for an offset is about 10 metres from the existing one. It'll minimise the impact we have to do to both ends of land as well. We'll need to submit a development application. We'll also need to continue consultation with Aboriginal groups, and importantly, community engagement. So that's an overview. I'm happy. I'll try also to drag up like that placemat as well, Glenn. Let's go. What if I go?
Thank you, John.
Cool. Unshare. Yeah. Right. Have you got us back on now?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Would you like to ask any questions, or would you like me to put up the placemat, Victoria?
I think if you put up a placemat, is that the one regards to the condition assessment?
Yeah.
You're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's have a try at that.
And then we'll look for some questions from members.
That one? Yep. So can everybody see that now?
Yes.
Is there a second? There is. It's not there. So that bottom right hand table is what we've shared before. We've actually got a back to this page which we'll share with council. It has a lot more of the photographs and the actual missing piles in some instances. We're wanting to share this with council after tonight. A bit of a timeline on the existing causeway, historical timeline, just some summary there of the condition assessment. So we'll share this with council after tonight's meeting. Don't know where that is. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right. And I'm assuming, Victoria, the council officer and elected members have seen the other.
Yes, that's correct. We've also got a copy of that available on our council website for community interest. So members have been provided with that as well.
What about this one?
Now, I'm not sure, there were some questions that were provided prior to the meeting, which I think some of them you have touched on. So if you're ready for questions, we might head that way.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we have to take those on.
I did receive questions from Councillor Braden Mann, so I might go to Councillor Braden Mann to see, did you have any further questions if you feel your questions haven't been answered as yet?
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, I just had questions. As you probably have seen by now, there's a lot of community interest in the project and in, I guess, preserving the original causeway. And I guess what your presentation provided then was the fact that, I guess, to these methods of preservation aren't possible because the pylons would have to be completely replaced. There's none of, I was wondering, sorry, if you could provide more explanation around that process of why refurbishment methods couldn't be used.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll ask Phil Malloy to just answer a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, yes, Brad. The original pile, like some of the piles are very badly, loss of section has occurred due to termite damage, rot, and that's, you can see some of the photos that John presented before with the necking of the piles. When you can jacket a pile, and the most common jacketing method involves wrapping the pile in a CFRP, which is a carbon fibre reinforced polymer. It's carbon fibres embedded in an epoxy matrix. You wrap the pile in CFRP and you pump grout in to provide an annulus around the pile. But it's really a composite section. So the pile still relies on the core, on a solid core to function properly. And we won't have that in a lot of cases because the pile, the existing timber is rotting and will continue to deteriorate even after it's wrapped. The other thing that causes a problem is making a connection of the pile to new crossheads that will be required. That's very difficult to do with CFRP wrapped piles. CFRP wrapping of piles is a good option when you've got good solid infrastructure above it and you're only looking at the piles. In our case, we're going to have to make a lot more crosshead connections and other connections which will rely on connecting into the CFRP pile, and that is very problematic.
So just to add to that, so, you know, Phil's been on our bridges for absolute years, from structures from like Joy Balut Bridge to every iconic bridge that we have in the state. So, and has been involved in these remediation measures where DIPTI has used them on the right circumstances. The other thing that's important is our new causeway, your new causeway, is for a 100-year design life. So any of those other treatments, unlikely that any organisation would warrant the design life for 100 years in the condition that some of this infrastructure is, the existing causeway. And when you look at the continual remediation need on any type of marine infrastructure like the condition it's in now, there will be a lot of cost continuously, whereas we want to design a new causeway reflective of the heritage of the old one, but for a 100-year design life.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mann. I'll go to, I do have a list of questions that of members I know that want to speak. So, Moira, did you want to speak? I know you raised the interest about the swimming baths, and we have provided some information to DIPTI as one of the additions to the new causeway.
I'm happy to get Colin to answer that.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been working with Glenn to review the feasibility of providing a swimming bath along the causeway, noting that Victoria Pier used to be there. So it is something we're looking at in regards to something like not too dissimilar to the Port Lincoln facility, which is a floating element some items that we need to resolve are elements like the mutual liability and the ongoing maintenance of it, and also from that side isn't overly deep, so we'd also need to investigate the depth in terms of suitability and the impact to the environment of having those swimming bars. So it's something that we can't commit to at this point in time, but we're definitely working with council. We've heard that it's a desire from council to have a swimming facility there, and we've seen that there's quite a few in the state that might provide a tourist attraction and benefits to the local community. So it's something that's definitely under review, but we can't commit to at this point in time. We'd also need to make sure that it links in from a heritage and aesthetics perspective. I know we've had discussions with Simon from ADASA that maybe some of the other examples aren't the most attractive from an aesthetics perspective. So that's an element we'll also need to work through to make sure it sits within the environment and the urban landscape that's provided.
And I think an important part of that is why I know that we want to pursue it as much as council does, is that it sets the new Causeway apart from what's already there. So it's something new for the community. It's something new for visitors to the area as well. So it's a strong thing that we'll continue to work with council officers to pursue.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you can hear me now, but I don't think you could hear me before. You can. One of the reasons that people were talking about it was part of that heritage factor, that there used to be the Victoria Baths attached to the Causeway, and in building the new Causeway, if there could be some sort of swimming facility that was there, so that people could do swimming in a pool, very similar to Port Lincoln, as you said, then that may be one way of remembering part of that original heritage with the Victoria Baths, having something there. But I appreciate we need to look at the ongoing liability of that and the suitability of that for council. But thank you for looking at it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so in terms of my listing, I know Councillor Robertson had provided some questions, and then I've also got Councillor Kemp would like to ask some questions. So I'll go to Councillor Robertson first. Have you been happy, or would you like to explore your questions further that you did provide to Dipti before the meeting?
Yes, Victoria. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. A good presentation. Thanks very much, Dipti. Yeah, I had a list of questions, but I know there's other people that want to talk, and if they, so one that that's come out of this this presentation is that we haven't yet started, if that's correct, we haven't yet started the environmental impact statement. And given the comprehensive nature of what you're proposing to do in this impact statement, will you be able to get it done in 6 months? Because you know, that was kind of news to me. I thought that by now some of that work would have started. That's why my question related to, have you already done it, and what were the results of it? So if it hasn't actually been started,
Councillor, I'm happy. I'll ask Izzy Gerard to answer that, because we are well advanced in that. So Izzy?
Yeah, so we have commenced environmental impact assessment, and that looks at a whole range of environmental aspects covering flora, fauna, noise, vibration, air quality, and heritage as well. And I think you had some questions around penguins and sort of the marine fauna, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Yeah, so we have commenced those studies and they will be ongoing. We have done an assessment on potential impacts to penguins to try and work out what the potential impacts could be, and then what we can do to avoid those impacts or minimise those impacts. So that work has commenced. We need to work though with the contractors that we engage and their construction methodology, because some of the measures that need to be put in place will come about based on the construction methodology that's chosen.
That's great, thank you. I would just add one quick question there, and that is, well, a statement really, is that when you're able to, when you think the issue is being finalised, it would be great to be fed some of those results as they come along. I'm sure there'd be a lot of interest locally in as you produce as you finalise the studies, there's going to be a lot of them that the results are out. Thank you.
Yeah, and what we might be able to do is we might do another placemat and show you some of the preliminary work from that already, which would be great to share with council officers, council elected members, and also the community. So we're happy to look at that as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor David Kemp, did you have some questions?
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, and thank you, the DIPTI team, and welcome. Look, I understand the process that what's taking place here, where DIPTI's asset has to be replaced, and you're designing and you're going through a whole range of different studies, environmental, all issues and consultation, and that's fantastic. But that's your asset and that's great, and you're building something which is going to appease the community down here and be a great asset for the future. And well done for that. My concern at the moment is that you're building into that infrastructure a horse tram track. And I know you're going to be building some track onto the mainland, some designs that will go to there. My concern is at the moment, we need to upgrade our tram track on the island. And we want to, I believe that what we should do be working together to ensure that we can build a one-track system in one effort, where we could actually tap into your contractor at the time under our own costs to actually continue the track development, but also the opportunity to redesign the track on the island, which will be much more beneficial, you know, for the junior who owns the island in that context, and to make sure we build the right track, the right system, so it's all connected from the horse tram barn all the way through to the island terminal. And I think that this at the moment, I'm not quite sure, from my understanding, there's a bit of a disconnect with us joining in partnership to continue that track design and development and build for cost of scale of economics for our community, that we have to build that, and we're willing to do that. But I think that if we could tap into DIPTI at the same time with your contractors to continue the process, I think that would be a fantastic initiative and savings for our community, and instead of engaging a different contractor to continue the work after you built your causeway and where you built the track where it ends on the island. So can you give us some indication that is that a possibility that we could join in and build that under the same construction, but different elements and different project processes in that?
So Councillor Kemp, thank you. Before I hand over to Colin to just answer a few bits about the rail, we've had really great collaborative conversations with council, and we've had a range of discussions around what we can do within our contract for works that council may envisage for us to be included. So your question around that, subject to, you have a process that you need to go to. I'm aware, no different to DIPTI about its budget. You should have to talk to that through that process. We're happy to assist in that regard. In addition to that, is that we're really comfortable to continue working with council on that matter. So that's certainly a way to do. I will ask Colin just to comment on the tram as well, please.
Yeah, so we've worked on, well, I've worked on quite a few rail jobs, and we've engaged a rail specialist to really work through with the geometry. It's obviously very important that the rail still operates, and we've been talking to the tram operator, Megan, and we'll be going down there next week to really understand how the tram operates and how it can integrate with the existing facilities. Because when you build a rail job, you need to get the rail geometry right, and you need to make sure that it can operate. It may not be the same as our metropolitan rail network, but it's still important to make sure it operates. So in regards to the geometry through on the island, we can continue discussions with council officers. We've definitely got the people from a design perspective, and they can then do some work on that, and they can also review the construction side of it. But making sure we've got access to 4 trams to operate, making sure that they can run 3 in different peak periods and have tram stops that function that provide the benefit for the tourist facility that's there. That's a very important element to this project.
And the only thing I'd like to add to that is obviously the significance of the island, and there's a range of impacts to the penguin colony. We would have to work closely with you and the other agencies around that, because our scope sort of is to where it is. So we need to do a bit further work apart from those environmental clearances as well. We'd be happy to help assist council through that process, subject to a process that council would have to go through on its budget sort of stuff.
Look, thank you very much for that commentary. That's fantastic. And look, I'm very appreciative personally myself. I think it's been a professional operation from the beginning to now. And I think the way you've managed this and handled it, and of course, you're covering off so many different aspects, which, myself, I'm not aware of, but I understand that. But I think it's fantastic. And just before I close off and let other people do it, I just want to diverse a little bit and just thank Dipty for a fantastic job they did in the Causeway and Torrens Road Roundabout is another Dipty project in Victor Harbour, which today I drove through. Fantastic, well done, Dipty. I think you're a professional organisation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Now, I can't see on my screen if any other members wish to ask any questions, so if you do...
Can I ask a question, Victoria?
Yes, you can, Councillor Glasbrook.
Thank you. It's not really a question. It's probably more of a comment, really. Firstly, I'd also like to thank Dipty for keeping us informed. It's great. I certainly get asked all of the time what's happening with the Causeway, so it's nice to be kept up to date. So if you could continue doing that, that would be wonderful. And for what it's worth, I'm very, very much in favour of a new Causeway. I know there's a lot of talk around at the moment about doing up the old one, but I really can't see any practical sense in that myself. So thank you. When it comes to swimming, I just wonder if years ago, I've lived in Victor for a long time, we used to go swimming at the little beach near the screw pile where the kiosk is. I think that's another fantastic opportunity for swimming, and that would also probably feed off onto the Causeway kiosk and cafe there as well. They'd be able to, families could set up there and hopefully support that business and go swimming from that little beach there. That's another opportunity. The other rumour that I would like to just check with you is I've had several people say to me that they believe that there will be no fishing allowed off the new Causeway. Could you confirm if that's the case or not?
So the first one around an alternative area for swimming, we'd be happy to work with council on that issue. I can't comment unless somebody else knows. I can't comment about the fishing off the Causeway itself. We are planning, and I'll pass to Simon in a minute, but we will need to be reflective of the heritage of the old Causeway, but we were looking what we call breakout areas at certain points. So they'll be sort of widened areas, and maybe even a connection to a refurbished part of the existing Causeway, and that could be something that could be investigated. So I'm happy to come back to you, Councillor, on that. And I think with any of those sort of things, that fishing off a structure, we need to be conscious of, you have an existing horse-drawn tram operating out along there, which side of that do you allow to, can we make a breakout area where that occurs? And generally the cleanliness and the mess that can be made on there. So we'd have to work with council on that as well.
Well, there certainly are people using it for fishing at the moment and have done forever. And closer to the island, there's a channel that goes through there, which is actually very good for fishing, and the locals know exactly what you have to do to catch the fish, because there's a bit of a trick to it apparently. So certainly I've had a few people that would concerned about that, so it would be good if they could continue to fish, in my opinion anyway. So
it's something that is not ruled out. I've seen nothing in our documentation or anything that I've had around banning fishing off that structure. So I think if it's something that we can work together on and how we can continue that, we'd be happy to continue that relationship with council and work through it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. I'll go to some of the other members who haven't spoken. Brian Litley, would you like to ask any questions?
Councillor Henderson has a...
Yeah, look, I don't have any questions that haven't been asked by other members or answered in the briefing, so thanks very much for that. Fairly thorough.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, I'll go to Marilyn then, if you had your hand up. Sorry, I can't see anybody.
Councillor Henderson has a hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, and I'm quite excited about this new causeway, I have to say. Just a question around the idea of having a swimming pool associated with the new causeway. Would that mean we need to have lifeguards employed whilst people are swimming? And if so, who would be responsible for employing those people?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. Look, that's one of the things we're working through with the council officers. So, so in regards to a swimming area, it's not something that DIPTI would be looking at maintaining through there. And if we need lifeguards, the depth of the water, and also, you know, what facilities we need to do, you know, whether there's lifebuoys, etc. So that's some of the work that we need to do with council from a feasibility. We have been discussing this, and we've been looking at other examples, especially with Glenn's work with other councils around the state. So we don't have that answer yet, and that will be part of the review to work out whether it is feasible or not. So, do you have any comment on that, Glenn? I know you've also been doing some work parallel, reviewing the feasibility component.
Just following up with Colin's advice about the mutual liability scheme, we're talking with those at the moment, Councillor Henderson, with our mutual liability scheme, Local Government Association, and that's taking on board the responsibility of the swimming ocean enclosure, and if guards are required, fencing and the rest of infrastructure that would possibly be needed to minimise council's exposure to risk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, I'll just ask any other members if you have any other questions, just probably speak up now.
If I may just ask a question and support some other comments that have been made there.
Over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody's thanked you sufficiently. I think you're doing a great job too. You mentioned time and time again the depth of the water, and that is critical for a swimming area. And I know it's particularly shallow. You can walk to the island at low tide without getting your shoulders wet. I guess it depends on how tall you are. But if there is a swimming facility or a pool connected to the new causeway, it may encourage people to dive or jump from the causeway into it if it's not carefully thought out. At the present moment, there really doesn't seem to be much incentive for that to happen. Maybe it's because we've got cold weather here most of the time. But it could be a possibility, a bit of skylarking, at least jumping, and we might have some paraplegics afterwards. So I would put my suggestion along with Councillor Glasbrook's point there about the beach, which is between the screw pile jetty and the breakwater. It's a lovely sandy beach there, and all it would require is a glass wall between the two. And that would, in fact, be of great benefit to the kiosk and to the restaurant out there. It would be another reason for people to go out and utilise that. It's ready-made. You don't have to worry about seaweed. You don't have to worry about the pool getting washed away by, you know, a storm. We've had some pretty horrific ones through there. In fact, I got some video of it if you ever want to see it, where we lost most of Policeman's Point. So we would probably need a structure there that's bulletproof, and at the same time it's going to stop sand drift. It's going to be a real environmental pain in the neck, I think. Anyway, that's all I need to say. Thank you very much.
That would be really welcome to see that video, and like I think everybody said, we'll continue to work with council officers in the first instance, and I'm sure anything we investigate would come to a council meeting for a decision around those options. So no commitment or nothing's been made at this stage. We just want to inform council that we are investigating it with your council officers.
No, I understand.
I also say, in regard to depth, look, that's something that we've been discussing as a potential risk, and you don't want to make it attractive for people to jump off. You know, it's something that I might do with my children myself, but and that's why part of the discussion was that if it was going to be empty, it'd be more of a floating enclosure to really reduce the attractiveness of jumping up from the higher ones. So in Glenn and my discussions, we've also been reviewing other ones around the state, and some are quite attractive for people to jump off, which is really not the situation here. We don't have the depth that we have in other places.
Victoria, thank you. Victoria, would you mind if I just ask Simon Lee just to talk a little bit about the urban design framework, please?
No, absolutely. That'd be great. Thank you.
Simon.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Look, thanks for having us. I guess just in terms of the urban design principles document, it's really a reasonably high level guidance document to set the vision and aspiration for the project. So it sets the state's aspiration for what we want to achieve out of it from an outcomes point of view. So a lot of it is really based on architecture's principles of good design, which look at context and inclusiveness, durability, value, performance, and sustainability. So there's sort of some high-level parameters that we aspire to, I guess, for our infrastructure projects. So it sets that at a reasonably high level, and then we also give some background information around the context of the project. So we've got we touch on the heritage aspects, the European history, the Aboriginal history, which is really critical and important to this project as well. And it's also based on a national urban design protocol. So it sets some high-level principles from that national document. And just to give you a brief flavour of it, I guess, the vision that we've kind of drafted at the moment is around about delivering a collaborative and interdisciplinary approach, which integrates the physical and urban design aspects to create an elegant local landmark, a civic-minded piece of infrastructure, and a place of cultural significance that's respectful of heritage and place. So we're kind of sort of setting that feeling for the project, which we will then continue to work with the successful consultants to deliver on, and that's sort of something that they will need to be constantly checking back on to make sure that they respond to those aspirations and visions for the project. The things that we're really focused on is the built form, so making sure that it's appropriate in its context, so it fits comfortably with with both foreshores. It doesn't have any negative visual impacts on the views, on the surrounding environment. In terms of things like fishing and the swimming aspects, we're looking to create vibrancy, so it's got attractive elements, so people are attracted to come to the causeway itself, as well as use it to transfer between the mainland and the island. We wanted to reflect the cultural significance of the place, both the European culture and Aboriginal culture, and also, it'd be fantastic if it was a piece of infrastructure that delivered some new legacy, I guess, and it was, we're looking for something that will be there for another 100 years, and that the community can be really proud of, and it can become a really important destination, and a fantastic piece of infrastructure that is fit for purpose, but also has some interesting cultural aspects around it as well, and there's something that the community is really supportive of and proud of. So that's really sort of the high level thinking that we're trying to achieve from the urban design principles. And as John had in his presentation, it also looks at some precedent projects around the world, which demonstrate some really good outcomes in terms of places for people to use and enjoy, and that's really what we want to get out of this.
Cool. Thank you, Simon. The other thing too, with any of these urban design features, this is where we want to use council support, council's endorsement, community engagement. So these are some frameworks that our contractors and that can then start to put some options to the community and council itself to be heavily involved in. So this is your area, your space, your community. We would really like their feedback as well.
Yeah, very important.
Thank you. Now I'm conscious of time and appreciate the time you've given. I'll just do one last check with members if they have any other questions before I look to sort of summarise and close. So did members...
Simon's given...
Yeah, I had one question. Sorry, go on.
You go, Andrew.
Yeah.
Your microphone's off, Andrew. You might want to push the button again.
Right. Okay. One of the I had 3 other questions, but I'll just limit it to one. The that I submitted. The one I'd like to explore with Simon Lee is there any chance that this structure can be in any way energy positive? Are you building into the design of this structure any wind or solar features that would enable the structure to provide its own lighting and any other requirements it might have for power and etc., and also for the island? Thank you.
They're probably some of the things I can address, but I'll get Simon to talk, but there's one thing is that this is why the contract form we want to do with an early contractor design and construct form is there's some of the innovations that can be included. Izzy's job also is part of the sustainability. So there's a whole range of parameters there about reuse of products. There's lighting that would need to be involved so we can look at some of those solar lightings. The issue you do have with some of this technology is about making sure that it lasts for the whole period, but there's certain considerations that we want the innovation of our contractor and our urban designers to start to look at and help us with.
Right, okay.
Yeah, look, I think, so just further to that, yes, there's certainly things that are really positive that we can explore, and solar power being one of them, and even looking at really simple water sensitive urban design opportunities at the the landing points on the foreshores as well, to even simple measures like passive irrigation to any garden beds and things like that for increased sustainability outcomes. But using the infrastructure as an energy producer as well, I think it would be a really interesting story. So there's certainly all those things still on the table.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Simon caused me to think of something else. He was speaking about having consideration for Aboriginal heritage and so on, and that made me think of. I believe there's a concrete surface in some parts going across. Is that correct? First up.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So we could perhaps sandblast some Aboriginal art into the causeway going across various implements that are used by Aboriginals. I'm just seeing that there is a possibility there for some fossils and things like that of various things that are in the area. So you're actually walking across and seeing something as you walk. Anyway, I'll leave it to you.
No, it's a fantastic idea, and it's certainly something that we've considered in terms of integrating aspects of Indigenous art and possible storytelling. There are 2 Aboriginal groups represented in the area, and Dipty's been working with both of them, and there will be a process of engaging with them to ensure that any interpretation or any stories that might be relayed through artwork are consistent with what those groups would like to see.
That's good, but this will be a nice, firm, permanent structure then, not something that's going to. Well, it's just there. I think everybody looks down more than they look up. So it'll be a great place to position it, that's all. And
yeah, I think it's fair to say that we're not looking at having a plain concrete pavement that goes out through. There might be made of concrete, but there's different textures, there's different finishes, and even the shape of elements like the headstocks and the bridge edge. You know, that's something that we'll be working with Simon and urban designers to make sure that, yes, it might be made out of concrete, it might have a concrete deck, but it doesn't mean to say you can't provide a good high quality finish, so that, you know, it's not going to be a straight, you know, plain concrete pavement like we do on.
It's not going to look like a driveway, you know, sort of thing. There's different levels of finish. There's different levels of relief you can put in when you precast the units. You know, some great examples around the city I'm involved in with the festival centre walls and other projects that we've done. So there's a great opportunity. I think it's a great reflection being Reconciliation Week as well. It's certainly important for this department to acknowledge that. And not only that, but we want to use anything of the existing structure. Should we seek approval and obtain approval to decommission the existing structure, there's opportunities for some of the good materials of that to either be used as seating with council or make some sort of reflection on both parts of the land surface as well. So we'll take all those points into consideration.
Thank you, John. I think most of the questions have come through, and I know as the project progresses, members may have more questions, but first before I hand to the Mayor to close, I just wanted to thank Dipty for the collaboration and working with staff. So Glenn Sanford is our project lead, and members need to have confidence that we are working really, really well together. We're having literally weekly meetings with Colin, and if not John and his team, as we're working through this project, and we've got a number of staff from council who are assisting with that urban design through David Reid. We've got a number of projects that are going to be happening concurrently when this project is on. So Victor is going to be somewhat of a buzz come the end of this year in terms of some amazing urban developments that we've got, as well as the Causeway. So we'll keep members updated, and when we get the updated placemat for the assessment condition or condition assessment, I'll send that out to members, and we'll provide it on our website as with other information. And as we progress a little bit further down this project, we'll look to provide members with another update. I'll just hand over to the Mayor, who wanted to say a few words in closing.
Thank you, Victoria. Look, thank you very much to John and the rest of your team for making the time tonight to come and talk to members. I know that when I spoke to you last week or the week before with Glenn and Victoria, you answered a lot of the questions that the community had been asking me, and I thought it was a good idea to have this briefing with the members, and also to enable the community to stream in and to listen to the answers as well, because there have been lots of questions, and certainly from my perspective a number of them have been articulated really clearly in terms of the answers and the reasons why the old Causeway just can't be kept because of the conditions. So I look forward to that condition report coming to council, and as Victoria said, she'll put it on the web and people can download it if they need to. I know that if people have got other questions, they can ask them through either myself or Victoria or any of the other elected members, and we can get those answers from you and feed back to the community. But thank you very much for making yourself so available to us and for answering the questions. And we look forward to working with you through this project into the future.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the assistance of your officers and Victoria. And I just also want to say, you know, our Chief Executive's taking a very avid interest in this. I know was in regular contact with Victoria when we had that pile collapse. So this is a very important project for the department, and I know our Minister is making sure that we keep to the community and answer any questions that we have to. So please pass them through. We might even develop a frequently asked questions sheet that we can use on the website as well. So thank you to you, your staff and all your elected members for the support.
No, thank you. I don't really hate WebEx that much, but look forward to a meeting in person very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.